Your vibration isn't low by accident. It's low because you keep making yourself available to what pulls you away from your essence. This is a spiritual truth that, when truly understood, holds the power to radically transform your reality. So often we believe we're fighting for what we want: peace, lightness, abundance. But in truth, we're silently being drained by everything we continue to feed with our attention. What depletes, distracts, and weighs us down infiltrates our energetic field through the simple act of observing, tolerating, and allowing. Today, you'll access a new level of awareness. That observation is also an energetic agreement. Even without acting, even in silence, everything you watch, repeat, comment on, consume, or allow begins to vibrate within you. And when that continues long enough, your frequency drops, your clarity fades, and life starts to stagnate. But there is a turning point, and it begins when you stop being available to what's silently draining your energy. When you stop offering yourself to chaos, the universe understands that your vibration is sacred, and everything around you begins to realign. Observation is also an energetic agreement. Few people realize it, but the simple act of choosing where we place our attention is, in itself, an energetic act. Observation is not neutral. To observe is to make a subtle offering. It's as if, by repeatedly looking at something with presence or emotion, you are silently saying, "I accept to connect with this." Your mind may believe it's just watching, analyzing, reflecting, but your energy field receives a different message. It registers that whatever you're witnessing, even in silence, is being fed by you. That's why you can go an entire day without speaking to anyone or leaving your house and still feel exhausted. Because observation creates invisible cords that drain, distort, or weaken your frequency without you even realizing it. It's a vibrational exchange that happens, even in silence. When you watch something over and over, when you return to the same kinds of content, the same stories, the same thought patterns, you're reinforcing your connection to that vibration. You're saying, "This is important enough for me to keep giving it my presence," and presence is energy. Here's a rarely understood spiritual truth. Attention is one of the purest forms of energy. It carries intention, it carries presence, it carries vibration, and anything touched repeatedly by your attention will, sooner or later, enter your field, shaping how you feel, how you think, and what you manifest. If you observe intensely, you connect. If you observe frequently, you align. If you observe emotionally, you manifest. Think about how the digital world has influenced you. How many times have you opened social media just to check in for a minute and left feeling worse, more confused, more disconnected from yourself? That didn't happen by chance. It was a silent, energetic agreement made through your observation. You let it in. In the same way, when you dwell on old stories, past wounds, negative news, or constant comparisons, you are signing vibrational contracts with realities that no longer reflect your essence, but that stay alive because you keep looking at them. This isn't about blame. It's not about denial or avoidance either. It's about becoming aware of what you're allowing to vibrate within you, even when you believe you're just an outside observer. Observation is the first step in creation. Everything you watch with enough attention begins to take on life. It starts to approach your field and shape what you feel, think, and experience. That's why the invitation is simple yet profound. Before trying to change your reality, observe where your observation is. Before asking for a new frequency, ask yourself, what am I making silent agreements with? What images, voices, thoughts, and energies have I been allowing in just by watching, listening, or tolerating? Once you start observing consciously, your vibration begins to shift because you stop being a passive receiver of reality and become a guardian of your field. Everything you tolerate also shapes your reality. There's a very common illusion on the path of consciousness that only what we desire shapes our reality, as if thinking positively, visualizing the best, and affirming our intentions were enough for life to align with what we want. But the truth is, the universe doesn't only respond to your conscious desires. It responds, even more strongly, to what you silently tolerate. Everything you allow into your field, out of habit, fear, convenience, or avoidance, is also shaping your reality. And often this tolerated field, though invisible and repetitive, has more weight than your conscious intentions. You may desire abundance, but if you tolerate scarcity in your thoughts, your relationships, your words, that's the energy the universe mirrors back to you. You may long for peace, but if you continue to tolerate noise, energy-draining people, and overwhelming patterns, peace becomes a distant concept, because the vibration you sustain mostly comes from what's around you, not just what you occasionally affirm. And everything you observe and allow to stay close, even passively, begins to shape your frequency. Your life is not only what you desire, it's also everything you allow yourself to observe. That truth hits deep because it reveals just how much our energy field is being filled, not only by conscious choices, but by all the things that fly under the radar, the content you watch out of boredom, the conversations you don't filter, the thoughts you repeat out of habit, the people who still have access to you despite not aligning with your path. Every element in your daily life carries a vibrational weight, and when that weight isn't recognized, it accumulates. It creates subtle blocks. It dulls your clarity. It distorts your perception. You start to feel lost, drained, low on energy, and often don't understand why. But the answer lies in the invisible, in what you've been tolerating. It's common to justify this tolerance with thoughts like, I don't want to be too extreme. I don't want to hurt anyone. It's just temporary. It's just a show, a feed, a conversation. But energy doesn't understand context. It understands frequency. And whatever is consistently fed, even in small doses, becomes the foundation of your vibration, and therefore the reality you attract. This is a call to look courageously at what's in your life just because it's familiar. What no longer lifts you, supports you, or connects you, but you keep around because it's always been that way. When you identify those things and begin to withdraw your energy, your field begins to cleanse. And with that, your reality begins to realign. Tolerance in this sense isn't an act of kindness. It's a silent agreement with everything that blocks you from accessing your true frequency. And when you break those agreements, even internally, you create the space for your life to finally reflect not just what you want, but what you truly deserve. Energy begins to rise when you create observation boundaries. There comes a moment on the path of awareness when you must make a silent yet powerful choice to no longer be available for anything that does not honor your energy. And that choice begins not with dramatic external actions, but with a simple internal decision to create observation boundaries. Many people believe that protecting your vibration means running away from the world, isolating yourself, cutting ties, or living in a bubble. But in truth, it all begins much earlier than that. It begins in the subtle space where you decide what is or isn't worthy of your attention. Because observation, as we've already seen, is one of the purest acts of energetic offering. What you observe frequently, even in silence, begins to inhabit your field. So when you decide to stop observing certain things, people, situations, or patterns, you're not just turning your eyes away. You're pulling back your energy. You're breaking an invisible link that was keeping that alive within you, and it's in that exact moment that your energy starts to rise. Not because anything outside changed, but because you created a vibrational barrier that protects your frequency. That barrier doesn't need to be visible. It doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't require explanation. It is an intimate, sacred choice to stop offering your attention to everything that constantly drains, distracts, or disconnects you. It's a deep act of self-respect. You start to notice, for example, that certain conversations no longer resonate. That being available all the time for those who constantly complain pulls you down. That watching certain content, following certain pages, or absorbing certain news only reinforces a vibration you've already decided to transcend. And that's when the boundary begins to form. Not as denial, but as alignment. Instead of making room for what contaminates you, you begin to choose what purifies you. Instead of remaining available to the noise, you open yourself to the silence. And this shift doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be true. Because every time you choose not to observe something you know no longer serves you, your field clears. And when your field clears, life flows. Many people feel like they're doing everything right spiritually, yet they see no results. Often it's because they're still energetically feeding what should have already been released. Heavy energy doesn't come from what enters once in a while. It comes from what is silently being observed, absorbed, and repeated. The observation boundary is the first filter. It's the point where you begin to say, this no longer gets through. Not because it's bad, but because it no longer aligns with your truth. Your vibration rises the moment you refuse to keep connecting with what lowers it. And the more you strengthen this internal boundary, the more the universe understands that you're ready for another frequency. Because your field begins to pulse at a different rhythm, and what once felt normal becomes unbearable. What once went unnoticed now feels heavy, and what once drained you silently is now clearly seen. Creating an observation boundary is a form of energetic self-love. It is you with your presence, declaring that you are available only for what sustains your peace, honors your soul, and nourishes your expansion. And that silent gesture holds a power that no technique or ritual can replace. The world wants your attention, but not everything deserves your focus. We live in a world designed to capture your attention. Everything is meticulously crafted for that purpose. Social media, headlines, notifications, algorithms, noise, everything competes for your presence. Because whoever controls your attention controls your energy, and whoever controls your energy influences your reality. In this context, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing you must be available for everything, respond to everything, see everything, understand everything, keep up with everything. As if observing the chaos were a way of staying conscious. But the spiritual truth is different. Not everything that exists out there deserves to live inside of you. Not everything that screams deserves to be heard. Not everything that appears before your eyes deserves your focus. As you begin to awaken, you realize there is a difference between being informed and being contaminated, between being present in the world and being consumed by the world's noise. And that difference is revealed in the choices you make about where to place your focus. You weren't made to observe everything. You were made to observe what elevates you. That phrase is freeing. It breaks the silent pact with overwhelm. Because the more you try to embrace everything with your eyes, the more you disconnect from yourself. Your energy fragments. Your presence scatters. And little by little, you lose connection with what truly matters. What nurtures your frequency. Your attention is your most sacred resource, and it must be guarded as carefully as something precious. Imagine your observation as a beam of light. Wherever it lands, energy expands. But if that beam is constantly directed toward fear, drama, comparison, or judgment, then that's the vibration that begins to settle within you. This isn't about ignoring reality or living in denial. It's about energetic responsibility. You are responsible for what you allow in, for the vibration of the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, the thoughts you reinforce, because all of that is silently building the energetic field where your life is being shaped. There are moments when you must ask yourself sincerely, what I'm observing right now, is it expanding me or exhausting me? Is it bringing me closer to my essence or pulling me away from it? If the answer is, it's diminishing me, then maybe it's time to look away. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. The world will keep trying to seduce your attention. It will keep throwing stimuli, triggering your emotions, feeding your addictions. But you can choose. You can decide not to surrender. You can learn to filter, to silence, to protect. You can place your attention in service of your elevation, not your distraction. And that choice, though subtle, changes everything. Because focus is a seed. What you focus on grows. What you repeat strengthens. What you observe with presence, you manifest. And when you direct that power with intention, your reality begins to reflect something much more aligned, much lighter, and much more true. So remember this, you don't need to observe everything that exists. You only need to observe what resonates with your soul, because that's where your energy flourishes. And that's where your new reality begins. How to protect your field through conscious observation. Protecting your energy field isn't about hiding from life, but about learning how to interact with the world without letting it define your vibration. It's a silent movement of inner sovereignty that begins when you learn to observe with awareness, not with automatism. Observing with consciousness means stepping into the role of guardian of your frequency. It's knowing that everything that enters through your sight, hearing, or thoughts begins to shape, in some way, the vibrational field in which you live. This protection doesn't need to be rigid, nor does it require external rules. It happens through simple, intentional choices made in the present moment. The first step is developing enough sensitivity to notice what happens to your energy after you observe something. There are situations, contents, people, or thoughts that, once observed, leave a trail of heaviness, discouragement, confusion, or disconnection. And there are also those that expand you, calm you, inspire you, and reconnect you. Learning to recognize these differences is the beginning of your vibrational shielding. A powerful practice is intentional silence. Instead of reacting immediately to whatever appears, you pause. Close your eyes for a few seconds, breathe, and observe the impact it had on your body and field. If there's contraction, discomfort, or a drop in presence, it may be time not to let that go any deeper. And you don't need to justify or explain anything to yourself. You just need to redirect your attention towards something that brings you back to balance. This redirection is one of the strongest gestures of energetic protection. When you withdraw your attention from something that drains you and offer it instead to something that nourishes you, you're cleansing your vibration in real time. It could be a sound, an image, a memory, a phrase that grounds you, a view of nature, or even just silence. What matters is that this new focus restores the center you were losing. Over time, you can create an invisible vibrational boundary. It doesn't need to be spoken. It doesn't need to be explained. But it becomes real because it's sustained by your choice to no longer observe what weakens you. It's as if you're saying internally, "This no longer has permission to occupy space within me." And that decision, even without words, has the power to break vibrational cycles that once felt unbreakable. There's a key phrase that can be used as a spiritual tool in this process. Simple yet deeply effective. I am no longer available for this. Say it silently when you feel something pulling you out of alignment. Repeat it internally when you notice you're falling back into an old pattern, absorbing energy that isn't yours, or getting lost in distractions that bring you down. This phrase acts as a subtle energetic cut. It tells your field that you're no longer willing to offer yourself to what doesn't nourish you. Protecting your energy through conscious observation doesn't mean distancing yourself from the world. It means learning to live in it with discernment. It means no longer being a passive receiver and instead becoming an active creator. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily practice of attention, inner listening, and self-love. But each time you more clearly choose what you will and won't observe, you strengthen your field. And with a strong field, everything changes. Your intuition blooms, your peace stabilizes, your vibration rises, and your reality begins to reflect, with more and more clarity, who you truly are. Everything starts to flow when you stop offering yourself to chaos. Have you noticed how life takes on a different rhythm when you stop engaging with what always destabilizes you? When you stop offering yourself to chaos, not just external chaos, but especially the internal one, something deep begins to reorganize. It's not magic, it's vibration. And vibration responds with precision to what you choose to feed with your presence. Chaos often wears the mask of urgency. It comes with noise, pressure, stimulation. It wants your reaction, your energy, your emotional involvement. And as long as you're available for it, it will continue to have power. Because chaos cannot sustain itself. It needs your attention to exist within you. It needs your gaze, your reaction, your repetition. But the moment you step back, everything changes. You don't have to fix everything or confront everything. Sometimes the simple act of no longer offering yourself is enough to dissolve an entire frequency. It's as if, by withdrawing your participation, you cancel the invisible contract that kept it alive in your life. When you stop offering yourself to chaos, the field begins to cleanse. What once drained you loses access. What once disorganized you loses its entry point. And in that pause, in that space between you and the stimulus, something new emerges. Clarity. Because where there is too much noise, there is no vision. Where there is involvement with what brings you down, there is no space to hear your intuition. That's why flow doesn't depend on effort. It depends on release. You don't need to force life to flow. You just need to stop holding on to what blocks you. And often, what blocks you isn't a big trauma or external event, but small observation links to energies that no longer match who you're becoming. Stepping away from chaos is an act of silent courage, because chaos can be addictive. It feeds an identity built in struggle, drama, reactivity, and when you choose to leave that, you may feel an initial emptiness, as if something is missing. But what's missing is the habit of getting lost. And that emptiness is not absence, it's space. Space for the new, space for truth. And in that new state, everything begins to flow more lightly. Answers come without effort. The right people naturally draw near. Opportunities arise with more synchronicity. Not because you're doing more, but because you're finally allowing the universe to work without interference. Chaos blocks. Presence freeze. When you refuse to participate in what disorganizes you, the universe gets the message. It recognizes your vibration as sacred, and in response, it begins to honor it. The field aligns. Life quiets down, and you realize with serenity that everything that once felt too hard to change only needed your absence, your firm choice to stop feeding what doesn't match your peace. You're not here to live in battle. You're here to live in presence. And true presence only blossoms when you learn to say, with energy and with soul, I am no longer available for chaos. That phrase doesn't close doors. It opens paths. Paths of clarity, intuition, flow, and truth. Because where there is inner order, life organizes itself outwardly. Where there is vibrational respect, there is universal cooperation. And where there is inner silence, there is finally space for the voice of the universe to be heard. We've reached the end of our journey, and perhaps the greatest truth you can take from this is this. Your peace begins when you stop observing what disrespects you energetically. As long as you remain available for what drains you, distracts you, or weakens you, your field will remain cluttered with interference, and your reality will reflect that disarray. But the moment you begin to observe with awareness, everything changes. Your frequency rises, your intuition awakens, and the universe begins to respond to your silence. So here's your challenge. For the next 24 hours, silently repeat to yourself, in the face of any stimulus that pulls you off center, I am no longer available for this. Watch what changes, feel the difference. And remember, when you protect your observation, you protect everything sacred within you. That is the true turning point, and it begins now.